Alrighty, where are we at? What's going on, everybody? I might be a little quiet, so let me know what I need to do. If I'm a little quiet, let me know. I'll give myself a little bit more kick. Okay, that should probably be pretty good there. What is going on, everybody? Good, okay, that looks stable there. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Booth B, yes, lots of GenCon fun. Although GenCon actually hasn't begun yet. Of course, it won't begin until Thursday. We're just here early. Yeah, we're streaming from the Hotel Void, not even really from GenCon. We just got back from dinner. It was me and Mr. Steven Glicker and Mark Seifter, the Roll for Combat crew. And of course, we were joined by Baron de Rapp. We were joined by Professor Dungeon Master and his wife. We were joined by Michael Putlack from Arcane Library and Night Noon Games. So yeah, hopefully it'll be pretty fun. We actually got a lot of setup done today. We got the booth set up, got the thing set up. We just have a little bit of work to do tomorrow, but it shouldn't be too bad. It was really hot today. So hopefully it'll be a little bit cooler tomorrow. They don't run the AC on move-in days, so yeah, pretty toasty. Yeah, so I apologize for the current situation that we're in terms of the quality. We are streaming on, my microphone is a lavalier microphone, so that's why that is that. And then the camera is just my laptop's camera. I did bring a nicer camera, but this was a emergency thing, so I just threw this together quickly and I didn't have a chance to actually set up my normal full camera. But also, Mark and Linda are in their bedroom and Steven's in his bedroom, and I'll be sleeping on that couch back there in the void. Speaking of the void, why are we streaming, Derek? Well, it's a Tuesday, right? We always stream on Tuesdays. And no, I wasn't going to stream, but they can't let me have a day off. And so the fine folks over at Darrington Press, whose booth I got to walk by today, although nothing was set up, so I don't think they're planning on setting up tomorrow. They actually have a pretty small booth overall. Yeah, it's a pretty small booth overall, but they released Void Update number 1.5. And for those of you who don't know, we have done previous looks into the Void, and the Void is what they call their Unearthed Arcana, basically. It's their playtest version, and right now, in the Void, there are 4 classes that are being playtested. The original playtest classes were the Warlock and the, or sorry, not the Warlock, but the Witch and the Assassin, and then we had the Warlock and the Brawler. So the Warlock and the Brawler have actually gone through several iterations, and then the Witch and the Assassin were released last time, and we did some thoughts, or we did some first looks at those, and we kind of took a look at them and had some feedback, had some thoughts. Obviously haven't had a chance to play them, but just mechanically there were a couple of things that we thought kind of stood out about them that I thought were a little bit interesting, so it'll be interesting to see what they change. They also released some new type of it's kind of a type of ancestry card. It's called a transformation card, and it kind of represents a template to your core ancestry, something like werewolf or vampire that kind of has a swappability where you swap the card in and out, which is pretty cool, and definitely gives me hope that they are having some fun doing some experimenting with the different things that you could use. You know, not technically, you can do this with anything. You could do this with a feat. You don't need cards to do this, but there's something very tangibly satisfying about taking a card and swapping it out and putting in a new card. I think that's really, really cool, and I'm excited to take a look at it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get into that. Okay, PDF. Hey, where'd it go? There we go. All right. Oh yeah, we're streaming. We're streaming.
Right now?
We're streaming right now.
Really?
Oh yes. We're streaming right now. Look at that.
Oh, look at that. Oh, look at all these people.
Yeah.
Hello, people.
Look at it, it's the man, the myth, the legend himself.
That's right.
But yeah, we're just about to cover the updates to Steven's wearing pants. So.
Hey,
There we go.
Hey guys.
Let's see, what do we get? I got 50 people watching.
Ooh, 53.
There we go.
Well, that's like a sixth of what I get. But you're on there too, so I'll say half.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
And besides, also, I literally just dropped this in the middle of the night.
Okay, that actually looks pretty cool. What do they got here? Ghost, vampire, werewolf, reanimated? What is this, like a LARP? Is this werewolf? Is this masquerade?
Yeah, is this warp? No, it's apparently they have a new type of ancestry where when you take a long rest, you can swap out your ancestry card with one of these as you like transform into the darkness.
That's such a good idea. I might have to steal it.
I know. That's why I said it's cool that they're actually in. I want them to sort of engage with the cards.
It is funny that half of those are literally from vampire.
That is true. Vampire.
Like you have werewolf.
Well, no, vampires from werewolf.
Well, you know what I meant.
I'm sorry, vampires from White Wolf.
It's
Vampire,
the land of darkness. World of darkness.
Well, Vampire the Masquerade.
Right.
Werewolf, the
Right.
Apocalypse. Reanimated is Mummy.
Right.
Shapeshifter is Changeling.
Changeling, yeah.
Ghost is Wraith the Oblivion.
Yeah.
And Demigod, you could argue, is Exalted.
Okay. Well,
So it is kind of all White Wolf.
It is White Wolf. That's very funny.
So you could say it is all White Wolf.
And we were just talking about that tonight.
Yeah. So, yeah, we are going to go ahead and take a look at, does anyone have a preference? Does anyone in chat want to talk about a certain class first?
I'll let you get into it.
All right, Glicker's going to go watch
Baseball.
Mets. I don't have any of my...
Daggerheart tip $3.
Where is the isekai card? Literally unplayable.
I apologize. I don't have any of my tip alerts up, so I don't even know if you guys heard that. But thank you, Cal, for the $3 tip. We're kind of running here on fumes. Actually, I need to log into my Stream Elements so I can even see what we're getting here. Hold on a sec. Okay, Cal says, where is the isekai card? Literally unplayable. Well, we could make one. Kendall, I love the idea of handing out cards as rewards or plot points, because the thing that you have to remember too is this is a fiction first game more than anything. And so while the mechanics are obviously important and we should respect them, that doesn't mean that they are the most important thing. And so I think it's a cool reward as a GM is to say, hey, you know, that power of yours changed, or your ancestry changed, or your community changed, and you can reflect that. And again, there's nothing stopping you from doing this without the cards, but I do think that the cards add a fun little element to the game. Okay, so let's get into it. Oh, you're saying make a Saiyan card and go Super Saiyan. So we've got which assassin heritages and brawler. All right, let's take a look at the brawler first. So what did we think about the brawler last time? Well, we liked the updates they made. We thought that I was a little bit concerned about them having to use advancements in order to make them their combo strikes better. It felt like it was a little bit of a tax. We did think that maybe their weapons did a little bit too much damage, but let's take a look. So Brawler is still Bone and Valor. I don't recall all of the things, and of course I'm not at home, so I don't have the old version of the Brawler to compare to. But it looks like they're starting at Evasion 10, which is normal. I am the weapon. If you don't have a weapon equipped, you get +1 bonus to Evasion. Cool. And your unarmed strikes are considered a melee weapon. Use the trait of your choice and deal D8 plus D6 physical damage using your proficiency, which still seems like that would scale very, very nicely. Combo strikes. After making a damage roll with a melee weapon, but before dealing that damage, mark a stress to start a combo strike. When you do, roll a combo die, note its value, then roll your combo die again. If the value of the second roll is equal to or greater than the first roll, continue rolling until the latest combo die is less than the roll preceding it. Total all the rolled values and add that to your weapon's damage. This increases at D4, and when you level up once per tier, you may use one of your advancement options to increase your combo die instead. Am I crazy that didn't change? Oh, what is their hope here? Staggering strike, 3 hope. When you succeed on an attack roll, stagger your target and force them to mark a stress. While staggered, they have disadvantage on attack rolls. Okay, I definitely remember them being able to stagger people. Okay, so then what did we change here? The stances, the subclasses? Let's take a look at Juggernaut. So we've got the foundation, increase the damage from D8 to D10, right? And we also know that eventually, oh, okay, maybe there are some changes here. Additionally, no, okay, additionally you can mark a stress to target 2 creatures with a single attack roll. Okay, we know that that's pretty cool. Overwhelm on the wording of the hope feature is different. Maury, how is it different? I don't feel like it's the same. Is it that you don't do it until after you succeed on an attack? I'm trying to remember what the original one was. This is, unfortunately, I don't have the original one. Maybe, I don't know if you can download it. It is temporary, which is good. I don't remember if it was temporary. I'm assuming it was temporary before. But, I mean, if they did change this, I think this is good. I like that you don't have to choose it until after you hit. You don't have to spend the hope and then roll and then miss. That would feel pretty bad. Okay, here we go. Spend 3 hope when you hit an adversary to also deal them a stress and make them temporarily staggered. While staggered, all attack rolls they make are at disadvantage. Oh, okay, so they just cleaned up the wording. Because it says, you know, deal them a stress, and this is force them to mark a stress, which is the correct way of using that. So they really just cleaned up the language here. Yeah. Okay, cool. You know, I wish they had a change log. Does anyone know if they have a change log? That would be cool. Is it like in the bottom? No, it's not in the bottom. I wish they had a change log. Edward, yeah, I mean, if you do that, that might be a little bit helpful for me. For sure. Okay, our next is Overwhelm. On a successful attack, you can spend a hope to force the target to mark a stress or to throw them within close range. All right, I think that's still pretty good. I am weapon first damage die when down was D10. Daggerheart went down. Oh, I am weapons first damage die went down. It was D10. Okay, I thought it went to D12. Okay, so they changed that from D10 to D8. Oh, it was D10 D6, and now it's D8 D6. I agree with that. It's a very subtle difference. It's a very small change, but I actually think that that's probably more correct. D10 D6 I think felt like it was too big. D8 D6 I think feels more appropriate for, you know, unarmed attacks. And the fact that you get the 2, you know, you're hitting with both fists, you know, I think that's totally appropriate. Okay, so that doesn't look like that change. Rugged, gain a permanent +3 bonus to your severe damage threshold. Additionally, now you can target 3 creatures. We knew that. Okay, eye for an eye. This was the one that I had a question with like the timing, and I was like, maybe I would redo this here. When you mark more than 1 hit point from an attack in melee range, the attacker must make a reaction roll, DC 13. On a failure, once per rest, they immediately mark the same number of hit points in return. Okay. So I think the question that we had was, is this usable once per rest? Thank you, GM Scott.
GM Scott's at $25. Late night random stream from GenCon. No tip goal. No problem.
No tip goal. We're only talking because they came out with an update to the Void, and I think it's worth taking a look at. But yeah, if somebody posts that in KLC content chat or something, I'll take a look at it. But otherwise, we're gonna have to kind of rely on chat's memory. Thank you, GM Scott. GM Scott will be at GenCon for a couple of days. He's leaving early because he's got family stuff to go to, weddings, I think. But we'll look forward to seeing him there. Alex, take care, buddy. I will see you there. Make sure you stop by and say, if you see me, say hi. So I think the question that we had for Eye for an Eye is this usable once per rest, or is this usable once per opponent per rest? Right? So I think that was the question, and I don't know that this has been fully answered. I don't know if we ever decided what this templating really meant, but because this part here, on a failure, once per rest, they immediately mark the same number of hit points in return, which definitely makes it sound like, in my opinion, it is tied to that opponent, not you. So in other words, you can Eye for an Eye anybody, but you can only do it once. So you can't Eye for an Eye somebody multiple times, but you can Eye for an Eye multiple people over the course of a day. Which in which case is very, very per enemy. Now, there is a little bit of a fiddliness there, because now you have to track which enemy you Eye for an Eye, but I don't think it's the end of the world. Pummel Joy. I think this is the same name of the ability, and I recall not like loving it. All right, thank you, GM Scott. Okay, so this was the 1.4 brawler. Okay, this is the 1.4 brawler. What happened to my face? There we go. Yeah, so the original brawler had this D10, D6, and it increased it to D12. You can still throw +3, throw 2 people. Same thing, once per rest. Okay. And then Pummel Joy, this is the original one. When you roll a critical success on a weapon attack against an adversary melee range, you gain an additional hope, clear an additional strength, and add +1 to your proficiency for the attack. When you critically succeed on a weapon, you gain an additional hope, clear an additional stress, and gain a +1 proficiency to your attack. And when you mark more than 1 hit point from an attack, you gain a hope or clear stress. And the original was when you mark more than... So the only thing they did for the brawler is lower the damage from the unarmed attack. Okay, pretty cool. And again, this is the original, and this is the new one. All right, martial arts. So this is the original. Roll for Combat is in the bedroom and in the chat. So this is the original one. You get a stance at character creation and at each rest. Roll a number of d6s equal to your instinct. Gain focus equal to the highest value. Place them on this card. Spend a focus each time you shift into a stance. It lasts until you take severe damage, the scene ends, or you mark your last hit point, or you shift into another stance. The new one, d6 equal to defense. Spend a focus to shift into a stance. Okay, so this is exactly the same. Keen defenses. Looks. This is the original one. Yep. I think they just cleared up the language a little bit on keen defense. Spend a focus to make an adversary use instinct within close range, deal d20 +3 using proficiency, and spend an additional focus to make them vulnerable. That's the original one, and it's still the same in 5. And then once per rest, you can perform an unbelievable feat, and once per rest, you can perform an unbelievable feat. Okay, so that all seems pretty standard. I don't know about all of these different stances. Max damage for brutal, defensive. They have disadvantage unless they mark a stress. And again, they changed the wording here, but it's the same. Originally, you could, when you attack, you could spend a focus to make them restrained. On a successful attack, you can make them restrained. Steady gives you a penalty to your evasion, but you can drop your lowest damage die. Precise gives you a +1 to hit. Precise, quick, maybe spend a focus to additional target. Yeah, I mean, this all seems like they didn't really change too much. I still really do like the Brawler. I still don't love their combo point. I wanted to make it more like a fighting game and make it more of like a press your luck mechanic. Some kind of system where you keep escalating the dice, but you have to choose to keep pushing the dice roll up. But yeah. All right. Well, I think for Brawler, I don't know that they would have changed any of this stuff here. It's like I need to do a comparison between the two documents so that we can properly see what's going on here. Oh yeah, we are live from GenCon, baby. I mean, we're live from the Airbnb at GenCon. All right, so yeah, I mean, none of this. I will say, the Monk, or the Brawler, has the potential, both sides, to be a very nasty mage killer. And by mage killer, I just mean they can do a lot of stress damage very quickly. So, like, for example, obviously, just as a, right off rip, their hope feature lets them makes the target forced to mark the stress. So cool. But then, like, if you're a Juggernaut, you have when you use your powerhouse, you can overwhelm them, and you can spend an additional hope to have them mark a stress. So you could do that on top of a staggering strike. So you could stagger them and make them mark 2 stress, which is, again, pretty cool. If you're, a martial artist, you could be in your scary stance, and whenever you make any successful attacks, you also force them to mark a stress. So it's very conceivable that the Brawler could be dealing, 1 to 2 points of stress damage with every successful attack, which I think is pretty sweet. It doesn't look like they changed anything else on the Brawler. Okay. Just reading all these. Nope, nothing else really changed. Okay, so Brawler's done. So let's take a look at the Warlock. Now the Warlock got changed up pretty significantly last time. They kind of made it easier for you to gain favor. So you can spend 3 hope to gain 1d4 favor. You start with 3 favor, and during a rest, you can spend one of your downtime moves to tithe to your patron. When you do, you gain favor equal to your presence. If you choose to forego this offering, the GM instead gains a fear. Not as punishing as it was before, so this is a little bit better. In addition, you have 2 spheres that your patron influences. This is the same thing I think we saw. Nothing massive changed here. We got a link from Edward with the other ones. Ooh, we have a website to compare PDFs. All right, sick. Hold on 1 second, please. So this is our old website, and then let me load up this website here. Downloads, Warlock. Let's see how well this works. Okay, here we go. This is new for me. Enhance. Hold on a sec here. Let me get rid of this. Well, I'll leave that actually. And then let me do a window capture. We'll call it compare. Okay. So, can we zoom in? Yeah, okay, we can. Okay, I guess we can't get rid of this sidebar here. Oh, Oh, we can. Cool, 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 cool. All right, well, I'm off the screen, and so is chat, but maybe that's okay so that we can see it more easily. So on the left, we have version 1.4, and on the right, we have version 1.5. So we see some minor wording changes here, right? Like they changed, this to value and also, and they changed this to values, and they changed take to spend. So nothing really super significant there. No changes in any of the packs. No changes in any of the spells that I can see. So is that really it? They just made some minor spelling changes. Oh, they changed one of the background questions. Maybe it was just a typo. Oh. What desperate situation led you to pledging your life to your patron? What desperate situation led you to pledge your life to your patron? So very minor, very, super minor. The cards are images and diff doesn't appear. Oh, okay. Got it. So they're images, not text. Well, I don't think that they would have changed any of that, but dang. But you are right. The cards are indeed images. All right, well, let's take a look here. Ooh, so there are some changes here. Okay, so when you choose the Pact of the Endless, you can assume the patron's mantle, and it lasts until the scene ends or you take severe damage. When in the original 1.4, you could spend a favor in place of an armor slot. Now, when you would mark an armor slot, you can spend 2 favor instead. So that is a change. And originally you had advantage to intimidate a target. Now you only gain a bonus to your tier. So that is much weaker. So this is a nerf. In addition, Deadly Devotion, after you make a successful attack, you can spend a favor to give your evasion a +1 bonus until the next time an attack succeeds against you. And I remember everybody was like, isn't that kind of the rogues thing? Next is, on a successful attack, you can spend a favor to gain a +1 bonus to your evasion until you mark a hit point or take a rest. I don't know, that's functionally the same, I think, as an attack succeeds against you, but I guess if you have enough armor, right, that's the thing, right? If you take a weak hit and you absorb it using your armor or your patron's mantle, then you didn't mark a hit point and you wouldn't lose your Deadly Devotion. Part of the problem with this is that this is true, Raj. You can stack advantage. Part of the problem with that is that I don't know that I feel like gaining evasion bonus from a Deadly Devotion feels correct. I don't know that I feel like thematically that feels like I'm attacking and I'm becoming more evasive because of my Deadly Devotion. You know what I mean? I just don't feel that as a flavor win. I like the idea that as I prove my devotion by making attacks and hitting, drawing upon the power of my arcane, my warlock, my dread powers, that something is happening, and that I'm kind of proving my worth. But I just don't know that evasion is what I would want to have there. I don't know what it should be. If anything, I think it should be like some sort of damage bonus or something. Okay, I could see that the problem is, Stephen, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. But for me, and this could just be me, in this game, and by the way, I apologize. I can't click on my I can't click on my chat like I usually do. What Steven said here, he says, I read it as your patron is protecting you as a reward for devotion. In this game, the way that I see that playing out is with armor slots, right? Or maybe damage thresholds, right? Not evasion. Evasion feels more like, skill, like you're dodging the attacks. And in fact, we see that, right, in the we see that in the ability, right? When you take upon the mantle of your patron, all right, by terrifying visage, you can now use favor instead of an armor slot. So that's like literally like your dark powers are absorbing these blows. And I do think armor is a lot easier to manage than changing damage thresholds. Not that it's impossible, but changing your damage thresholds a lot is kind of fiddly, overly fiddly probably. But yeah, so I don't know that I love that power or ability. Just that didn't change, but I'm just saying. All right, next is the draining evocation. All right, did this change? Nope. And I still think this is very powerful. I mean, you do have to spend one of your favors, but man, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. They roll a d12 instead of a d20, and they have to mark a stress, and you get to clear a stress. Wow. Huge. All right. And then lastly, the Warlock. All right, here we go. So originally, once per long rest, you can spend a favor instead of marking any number of hit points. Okay, once per long rest, when you would mark any number of hit points, you can spend a favor instead. So it's just a templating thing. Ooh, Draining Bane. The target of your draining invocation also becomes temporarily drained and now uses d12s. When an adversary attacks you or an ally within very close range, you can spend 2 favor to temporarily drain them. When you do, they must mark a stress and you must clear a stress. A drained creature uses d12 instead of a d20 for attack rolls. Interesting. So what, am I missing something here? I think they just repeated the text. So that people didn't think that you didn't get the other thing. Oh, I see. You have to now spend 2 favor. That is a big change. So it does cost a lot more. I see. All right. All right. I don't know if we saw any other. So Hyper Obnoxious says, I feel like the D12 instead of a D20 is too strong. I feel like disadvantage would be good enough. I think that's a really interesting idea, okay? We know from the math that rolling a 2d20 take low is, I think, functionally equivalent to about a -5 on the d20. Rolling a d12, which has an average of a 6.5, is about equivalent to a -4, obviously, to the average of a d20, which is 10.5. So statistically, it is fairly close. But I do think that there is a difference, a play difference in the physical, tactile element of the rolling the d12. And I think the biggest change there is that the maximum number that you can roll with a 12 is a 12. And so, as a result, there's no chance that someone could roll an 18. Obviously, even with disadvantage, they could still roll a 17 or an 18, you know? Steven, I assume the DM would then crit on a 12, right? I don't think they would. Hypernoxious. Players roll disadvantage with a minus d6. GMs roll disadvantage with 2d20 take low, just like in 5e. So, yeah, the minus d6 thing and plus d6 thing is just a PC thing. GMs roll very differently. So, all right. And let's see. Once again, I thank people for showing up for this. Just wanted to cover this stuff. Okay, so this is Pact of the Wrathful. Oh, looks like we got some big changes here. So in 1.4, we could spend any number of favor to imbue our primary weapon with our patron's power. When rolling damage, we can choose to add an additional d6 to all damage rolls you make with it for every favor we spent until the next time we rest. Anytime we deal this additional damage, we have to mark a stress. So if we mark 5 favor, we're going to be rolling an additional 5d6 on all of our damage rolls. Instead, we now have 2 new abilities. We have Favored Weapon, which marks a stress, and we add plus 1d6. So the same thing as we had before. The only difference is now we have given our weapon the imbued property, and it's in italics. But we also have this Herald of Death. When we fail an attack roll, we can spend a favor to re-roll it. If it fails again, mark a stress and take the new result.
How's it look?
What's that?
How's it look?
Well, so far the changes have mostly been grammatical updates.
Oh.
But there have been a few nerfs.
Oh, nerfs.
Oh, yes. The monk went from doing d10 plus d6 to d8 plus d6.
It's like 2 points. 3 points.
Less than that, right, on average?
Yeah.
But, it's a game of inches.
I guess.
Any case, going back to this is kind of a weird change here. So we have an ability to basically hit more accurately, but it's kind of a push your luck mechanic, because if we do fail that reroll, so not only did we still fail, but we have to take an additional point of stress. So it's kind of a...
So wait, are they updating some of the core classes as well?
No. This is just the playtest document. So this is the Warlock version 1.4 on the left, and then on the right is Warlock version 1.5, which they released today.
What about that monk thing that you said?
That was version 1.4, and now they released 1.5. Monk's not in the core set.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it's not called the Monk, it's called the Brawler.
Oh, okay. That's why I was confused.
Yeah. You just assumed there was a monk. Yes. Actually, originally, when they released in the first version, the monk was called the Fighter.
No. See, that's my favorite class, is the monk.
But, it's pretty cool.
Well, in Pathfinder, I meant.
Oh,
and D&D. Actually, it always has been my favorite class. So.
Daggerheart's pretty cool.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Although I am playing a monk in Smith's alternative 5e campaign, and, I made a 2024 monk.
I heard they're really good.
And they're really cool.
Yeah, I love monks.
Yeah,
I love monks.
The fact that I rolled an 18 and I was able to put that into my dexterity, though, helped a little bit.
Well, there you
go. So anyways, where are we at next? So yeah, this is cool. I like push your luck mechanics, and we still basically get Patron's Wrath, right? The only difference is we only have to mark the stress once. So see, with Patron's Wrath originally, we had to mark the stress every time we wanted to do the damage. Now we mark the stress and spend the favor just once. So that actually sounds like a boost to me. I think that sounds like an upgrade. Because my guess is that what people found, stress is it's one of your most limiting resources in this game. And my guess is that people found that spending the favor to imbue your weapon and then you have to spend a stress each time you wanted to do it was just not worth it. Oh, wait a second. I'm reading this backwards. No, it's not a nerf. Or not a boost. It's kind of a nerf. I don't know. They swapped it. See, originally you spent the favor once, and then you spent a point of stress each time. Now you mark a stress once, and now you spend any number of favor. And gain a d6 for each favor spent. I see. So now this is more favor hungry. So, So I think, well, I don't know exactly how this is. On a successful imbued weapon attack, you can spend any number of favor to gain a +1 d6 damage bonus for each favor spent. I don't think I like that. The reason I don't like that is because you have to make that decision before you roll your damage. So how do I know if I need to roll the additional damage or not? I don't know. It's very difficult to understand what the favor economy is of the Warlock. Pumpkin says, King Hodop wants me to tell you that you suck at YouTube, Derek. I don't know why. Well, maybe I do. I don't know. I know that Baron DeRop was making fun of me at dinner for sucking at YouTube. Yeah, it lasts until you deal severe damage. I don't like this. I don't like this change. I don't think this is a good change. It's weird. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to use it or where it's useful, because if I spend a bunch of favor, then it's going to do severe damage once and then end. The fact that imbue is now, it's italicized imbue implies that it is. I mean, I think that's just a general thing saying like that's what they use for things. It's very clunky. John, to be honest with you, I don't love either version of this. Maybe that's why they gave it Herald of Death as well, because they wanted to balance it out. So, I don't know. All right. Pact specialization. So, Herald of Death used to be in the specialization, and they moved it back one. Instead, we still get diminishing foes, which is the same. Oh no. Oh. So they just changed some of the language here with diminish my foes. So diminished foes used to say when you succeed with hope, instead of taking a hope, you can have the mark of stress. Now it says when you succeed with hope, you gain the hope, but then you can spend a hope to make the target mark of stress. So it's like you gain it only to lose it. And then there's this menacing reach. You can mark an additional stress when you imbue it to make its weapon range increase. You can always spend a favor to reroll any number of your damage dice. You can continue to spend favor to reroll the same dice as many times as you like. Whenever you make a successful attack roll, you can spend favor to reroll any number of your damage dice. You can spend favor to reroll these dice as many times as you like. So that's literally the same one. And then Divine Ire is once per rest. When you take damage, you can spend favor for each target within close range. They must mark a hit point. Once per rest, when you take damage, you can spend any number of favor to target that many adversaries within close range. Each target marks a hit point. This is much more in line with some of the mechanics that we've seen in the game, where you have to spend X of a resource to target X number of adversaries. So it's just cleaning up the language. And, you know, it's saying you can spend a favor for each target within close range. This is you can spend any number of favor to target that many adversaries. So it's really just cleaning up the language a little bit. Yeah, overall, I think it's okay. It's not great. All right. So next, we are going to take a look at. What do you guys want to do? Witch? I like the Witch. I gotta download the Witch. All right, this is version 1.4 of the Witch. Okay, cool. So let me drag Witch on the left. Witch. All right, and then let's drag 1.5 Witch on the right. Okay. Okay. So let's zoom in here. Okay, so we've got the Witch. Everyone can see it. All right. So Witch's charm may have changed, but it could just be a change update. When you or an ally within far range rolls a failure, you can spend 3 hope to change into a success with fear instead. I hope they didn't change this too much because this was one of my favorite mechanics. When you or an ally within far range rolls a failure on an action roll, they just specify that, you can spend 3 hope to change it into a success with fear instead. Okay, they didn't change that, which is cool because this is one of my favorite hope features in the entire game. So that's good. They didn't take that back. Okay, we've got some big changes. Some of these I think we called here on the channel. So good job to people who may have been in the chat when that occurred. Apparently I can only go between 200% and 400%. I can't go any closer. Okay, so Hex. When a creature causes you or an ally within close range to mark any number of hit points, you can mark a stress to hex them. While hexed, they get a penalty to their damage thresholds equal to your spellcasting trait and a penalty to their difficulty equal to your tier. You can only have one target hexed at a time. They changed it. Now, there was a couple of people that became concerned about several things from that original version. So we're talking about version on the left. That's the original version, right? So the original version was, you know, a couple of problems. One was it didn't say temporary, right? It said you just hex them. And it didn't say temporarily hex them, which means it technically was like kind of like a permanent condition, sort of. And also, it's a little bit awkward because you're tracking as the GM the damage threshold, and a lot of people in this chat, myself, were like, why don't we just gain a bonus to damage? So one of the interesting things about this is no, you cannot use this on a so there was that question. All right, sorry, it's really difficult trying to use my keyboard to do this. So next, that's what we originally had. Now, when a creature causes you or an ally within close range to mark any number of hit points, you can mark a stress to hex them. Action and damage rolls against a hexed creature gain a bonus equal to your tier. Okay, so this does a couple of important things. Number one, instead of using 2 different traits, which is your spellcasting trait and your tier, it just uses your tier, which makes this a little bit more balanced, and it's not weird because you don't have to track 2 different numbers. Whereas before, you had to track your spellcasting trait, which went to your damage threshold, their damage thresholds, and the difficulty. Now, the other problem is, by giving them a penalty to their difficulty, you also make it potentially easier to do things like wipe them out or curse them or use a wave of disintegration against them, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But functionally, having a penalty to your difficulty is the same as having a bonus to your attack roll. And so what we see here, and I think this is a really important thing in the change of this stuff, is that now when you hex somebody, man, I wish I could go somewhere. I wish I could go to 300%, but it really will not let me go to 300%. I'm sorry, guys. When you hex somebody, you get a action and damage rolls get a bonus equal to your tier. This is exactly functionally equivalent to taking a penalty to their difficulty and their damage thresholds, but you put the burden on the players. And I think this is huge because instead of the GM having to track this now, it's now the warlock who has to track it. And the warlock has to say, hey, that's my hex target. And then when your ally goes to attack somebody who's hexed, you remind them, the warlock reminds them, hey, we're tier 2, add +2 to your attack roll. Hey, you add +2 to your damage roll. That's really cool because number one, it makes the warlock, I think, a little bit more involved. It takes the GM having to remember what the creature's stat changes are, which is really, really annoying. And most importantly, Stephen got it right, which is as a player, getting to add to your dice roll, getting to add to your damage roll, I think feels more satisfying than something like the damage threshold being lower, because then you just don't see it, you know? But we see another thing here, which is in order to get rid of the hexed trait, the GM has to spend an amount of fear equal to your spell casting trait. That is pretty neat. Because we do know that the GM can use a fear to end a condition, but now it is very expensive to end a hex. And I think that is the kind of brutal fun, because I mean, your starting trait's going to be 2, but very quickly your trait might be 3 or 4. When you put a hex on a monster and the GM has to choose to spend 4 fear to remove that hex, when they do, if they do, you'll feel really good about that. You know, that hex consumed that much fear. I think that's really cool. I think that's actually a really cool change. And I actually like this new version of the hex a lot more. So good job, Darrington Press. Secondly, we saw a lot of people who said commune was way too fiddly. Like rolling taste. You know, it's cool that they added that, but like when you roll a 1, you taste a flavor relevant to the past scene. Most people are like, this is useless. It's probably going to mean nothing most of the time, and how the hell am I supposed to know what that means? So they clean this up. So the first thing is, during a long rest, you can commune with an entity, an ancestor, a spirit of nature, and roll 4d6. Now, we roll a number of d6 equal to our spellcasting trait, and we choose one value instead of if any of the dice match. Secondly, 1, 2, or 3 is you taste a flavor, smell, scent, or feel a sensation relevant to the answer. So this is a much, much better way to do this. Number one, we don't have to worry about this wonky thing where do I get matching d6s? No, you roll a couple d6s, you get more d6s as you get more. You get to choose. It's always going to work. It's never going to not work, which is cool. And more importantly, you know, if smell or taste would be completely irrelevant and would offer you no benefit, then you know you're not losing out on doing something by gaining this. So I think that this is a totally awesome, you know, upgrade. And I think this is actually really cool. So I actually like both of these changes a lot. So good on the witch. Hex is easier to run. It costs a ton of fear now. It's more consistent. And they made commune much more playable, much more valuable, much more useful, much just easier to integrate, quicker to integrate, and it's not going to disappoint you. And oh, I didn't roll any doubles, so I don't get to do anything with it. Or I rolled double ones. GM, tell me about a taste that is relevant. Yeah, exactly, Jake. They don't have to be a portent sommelier, which is really great. So these are both great changes. So well done. Next. So, okay. Love it. So one of the first things that we see, so this is, if you remember, this was a change that Derek wanted to see. Hey, look, it's back. I added it correctly.
Edward tipped $20. Daggerheart never ends. Thanks for making time to cover the new stuff.
Edward, thank you so much. And remember, just because I'm on vacation and I'm at GenCon, I mean, what am I at GenCon for? I'm at GenCon to feel and love the games, folks. So yeah, I'm here to, Daggerheart comes out with new updates. I'm here, I'm into it. I want to see where this game goes. I want to see where the developers' minds are at. I want to go to Darrington Press, in 2 days and say, hey, let's talk about version 1.5. Oh, David. So Edward, thank you so much. And yeah, the Dagger hype is real, guys. I'm legitimately excited about playing this game, and I'm excited actually about making my own version of this game. I'm telling you, 12 level Dagger hype is coming in. We have to come up with a name for it. Daggerheart, the Knights edition, Dagger Knights. I just want a 12 level version of the game, guys. It does, Portent Sommelier does sound like a PF2 archetype. I agree with, I think archetype GM Scott is better than thing. So David pointed out, let's go back, ignore my mug, my ugly mug. David pointed out the commune was during a long rest. And now, oh no, it's David, it's still long rest. Because it said during a long rest, and now it's once per long rest. So it's still during a long rest, which is good. When I read what you said, David, I was a little concerned that you were going to be communing all the time. Ooh, Jake, Daggerheart, the Dodec edition. That's really good. Nightheart, Dragonheart, Dragonbane Heart, Heartbane, Daggerbane. Even though it doesn't have anything to do with that, but Daggerbane hype too. Okay, so let's get rid of my ugly mug. And so this was something that I specifically said, and I'm glad to see that a lot of other people who gave them playtest results gave them the same feedback, which is in the original version, the Hedge Witch and the Moon Witch both used Instinct. And I thought that the Moon Witch using Instinct was fine, this kind of like a nighttime witch who's in tune with the surroundings and the movement of the stars in the heavens. But the Hedge Witch had vibes of being like an alchemist. And I thought they should use knowledge, and they changed it. So you can see here on the left that originally the Hedge Witch subclass used Instinct, and now on the right, you can see that the Hedge Witch uses knowledge.
You're talking about Hedwig and the Angry Itch?
I'm not talking about Hedwig and the Angry Itch. I'm talking about the Hedge Witch.
Oh, okay.
So let's take a look and see what they change, if they change anything. It is unfortunate these are images and we can't use our PDF compare.
Wow. That's some fancy technology there. PDF compare.
So
That's a good idea.
Herbal Remedies and Tethered Talisman are still the two foundation abilities of the Hedge Witch. Herbal Remedies used to be when you take a downtime action that requires rolling, you can roll twice and take the higher result. The new version is when you or an ally clear one or more hit points or stress as the result of using a consumable, increase the number cleared by 1. Interesting. So they're like, this is kind of a class that is leaning into some of the items of the game. Huh. I don't know how to think about that. I guess it comes now. Part of the problem is this class doesn't necessarily get an ability to make items. So I don't know if that's. I mean, I love the narrative of it, Maury, because I like. Now, granted, the original one is useful in any situation, right? But the problem with the original herbal remedies is, as when you read it, it only worked for you. So I like the idea that this hedge witch is going to have a bunch of the, because Daggerheart does have the, the potions, right? It has the consumables. I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's a huge flavor win. I just don't know. I just don't know how to feel about how often that's going to come up. I mean, I certainly like it better that it's when you or an ally, instead of when you take a downtime action that requires rolling, you can roll twice and take the higher result. Now, the idea there was if you were taking the action to heal one of your allies, right? Because it wasn't just literally you, it was when you roll, which means like if I, as the witch, as the hedge witch, use my downtime action to heal someone's stress or to heal someone's hit points, I can roll 2d4. Now that is true, Stephen. You guys are very observant. Before it was a downtime action. Now it's whenever you or an ally clear one or more hit points as a result of using a consumable increased by 1. That happens even in combat. It's like the witch has already sort of increased the potency of any consumable that the party has in their possessions. That's really fun. That's actually really neat. Can you, what was the question? Can you clear stress? Yes, there is a minor, is it called stamina potion, I think is what it's called. I mean, this is a huge flavor win, Edward. I completely agree. Yeah, I love it. I'm getting GM Scott says Rindale's need salt ability, Daggerheart edition. Well, I'm getting vibes of the who's the potion maker in Fabula Ultima? It's like why can't I think of the potion person in Fabula Ultima? But just being somebody who really focuses on making consumables, I think that's really cool. Well, Derek, we do know that one of the things that you can get for a loot is a stamina or health potion recipe. And one of the things that you can do once you have the recipe is your character can take a downtime action, and you don't spend gold. You actually have to use kind of monster parts. So, for example, if you want to make a stamina potion, which lets you make a minor stamina potion, as a downtime move, you can use the bone of a creature to craft a minor stamina potion. So you can use a downtime action to make a stamina potion. Similarly, you can use a vial of blood to craft a minor health potion. So it's kind of like a quasi monster parts system. I don't know if they're planning on expanding that more, and maybe that could be a whole area of third party thing. Yeah, Tinkerer. That's what I was thinking. Thank you, Z. Yeah, Tinkerer. And I think the Tinkerer is so cool. I think IP is so cool. It's one of my favorite systems from Fabula Ultima. That's inventory points for those of you who don't know. Fabula Ultima. I think I love the IP system. I love all the classes that gain bonuses to IP and stuff. But yeah, Tinkerer. And it also has kind of shades of the gourmet from Natural Fantasy as well, which is another class that I think is actually, well, it's very complicated, but it's really cool. Maury, I agree with you. Maury says, something about this kind of passive healing boost feels a lot more interesting than the typical heal spam healer. I agree. I think it is kind of a cool way, and it feels different, and it feels different in the fiction. And I think that's a cool win, hands down. So I don't know if it's more powerful, but it's more interesting. All right, let's take a look at how they changed Tethered Talisman. Once per rest, during a moment of peace, you can enchant a small object and give it to an ally to tether to them. While a tethered ally holds this object, when they are hit by an attack, you can expend the magic to deal 1 hit point to the attacker. And I didn't like this because I felt weird because it feels like this should be protecting them, not doing damage. So they changed it. Once per rest, you can imbue a small item with your protective essence. When the person holding the talisman takes damage, you can expend its magic to reduce the number of hit points they mark by 1. So it's basically like giving somebody a free armor slot once per rest. So, number one, cool. They changed it the way that I thought they should change it. Number two, though, I still feel like there's something about this that isn't quite enough. I don't know what it is, but just functionally it is giving someone an armor slot. But I do feel like there's an opportunity there to do a little bit more. I don't know what it is, but there's something there. I don't know what it is. That's where I'd have to, be an actual game designer and know stuff. But there's something about that that leaves me feeling a little bit wanting. But from my personal opinion, it is a big improvement. I think giving somebody protection, the Hedge Witch feels like somebody who should be giving you a literal, I think talisman really is like, the idea of a talisman is something that is protective. It is true, Derek. It's not armor, so it does stack with it. It is totally fine. But I think I don't know. There's something about that. I like the idea of a talisman being a little bit more stronger than just an armor slot. But you are right. They can now use it they can stack it with their armor. All right, so we still have Walk Between Worlds. All right, and we've already improved this dramatically. So Walk Between Worlds used to have to make a check when you were in an area containing one or more dead bodies, which is already just sort of awkward. On a success, you watch the last few moments leading to their death by bringing the surroundings of their past life to spectral form. You can also mark a stress to hear the sounds. If you fail this DC 13 spellcasting roll, the bodies turn to dust. Okay. Scroll sync, please. So, sorry guys. So the problem with this is, one, it's very wonky about when you get to use it. And two, it's kind of a dead giveaway, which is you get to watch. I mean, it basically auto solves any murder mystery, right? Which is not to say that Speak with Dead isn't very powerful for that, but this literally solves it immediately. Instead, we now make a spellcraft roll and we step beyond the veil of death and we converse with any nearby spirits. Place a number of tokens equal to your spellcasting trait on this card and remove one each time a spirit answers a question. You return to the mortal realm when the last token is removed. This is way more cool, way more versatile, way more fun, way less get fucked. It's the idea that your character is sort of transversing the veil to literally go into the spirit realm to ask questions of the spirits, not just the spirits of the dead, but it's way more loosey-goosey, and I like that. I like that it's a distinct number of questions. This is a great information gathering thing. It feels very much like the attune skill from Blades in the Dark, where it's a little bit more multi-purposed, and I think that this is pretty cool. So I think this is way cooler. It's kind of got a sixth sense, right? What was her name? The one with Jennifer Love Hewitt. Ghost Whisperer, maybe. It's got that kind of vibe, which is weird and cool and witchy, and I think that's way cooler, And Edward, yeah, this to me feels more Daggerhearty than the original one, because a lot of people said, and I agree, the original one just kind of felt like a subclass feature of Speak with Dead, sort of, kind of. I don't know. This I think is cooler. No, not the horror movie. She was on a TV show where she could talk with ghosts. Yeah, John's got it. Ghost Whisperer. Okay, next. We've got enhanced augury. Now this doesn't work anymore because they changed the way that augury works. Because before you rolled 4d6, and now you roll a number of dice equal to your trait, and the whole thing works differently. So instead we get enhanced hex. Attacks you make against hexed creatures gain a damage bonus equal to your proficiency. Huh. Here's the thing. Cool, our witch can do some damage. But I don't know that that feels very hedge witchy. I don't know what it is about the hedge witch that has this enhanced hex. Compared to these other abilities, it just feels flat. And just adding a couple, I mean, your proficiency is going to be what? 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, maybe 6. You're adding a couple of points of damage. I'm not saying that's nothing, but it just doesn't feel very hedgy to me. Yeah, I just don't feel this feels very hedge mage witchy at all. So I don't like this ability. I'm going to say I don't like enhanced hex. Number one, I think the ability is kind of boring anyways, but outside of it, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem like what we're doing here. So, not a fan. I'm not saying it's like bad design, but I think it's boring and it's not very hedge magey or hedge witchy. All right, so our last ability, which I also didn't feel was super hedge witchy, is Circle of Power. Once per rest, but maybe I guess the idea of them like, binding a place in a circle of salt or something like that. Once per rest, you can mark a circle on the ground up to very close range and place a number of tokens equal to your spellcasting trait on this card. Each time you make an action roll or hit with an attack, remove a token. It lasts until you step out of the circle or you've spent your last token. While you're within the circle, your damage threshold goes up, your attack rolls go up, your evasion goes up. And now you and all of your allies. Wow. Okay, so it's now a group effect. It's not just you. This spell lasts until the last token is removed. While within the circle, you and any allies. This is a group buff. Okay, that feels more hedge, right? Because the hedge mage or the hedge witch feels like someone who is like kind of, helping their allies with their mystical witchy powers. Now, of course, I will say it loses it much faster because each time you or any ally makes an action roll or is hit with an attack, remove a token. So you are going to burn through these tokens really, really quickly. But by the time you get this, keep in mind, your spellcasting trait is going to be 4 or 5 because it's pretty close to the end of the game. Maybe 6 if you have a magic item or whatever. And so, while you're sitting in the circle, like you're going to be able to use this a couple of times. Thaddeus says, I don't like it. I don't think the hedge witch should benefit. I could see that, but it's very coven-y, it's very circle. I could see that, Thaddeus. I just call it Circle of Protection. Yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool. Now, I will say, kind of independently, that one of the classes that I want to make is a abjurer, right? A protection mage. We've got like protection tanks, but I wanted to make like a protection wizard. And maybe it's Valor and Codex, or maybe it's Valor and Arcana or Arcane. And really my theme for it is actually based off of Discipline Priests from World of Warcraft. And part of what I want to do is sort of kind of have a circle of power-like ability that we see here from these classes, from this mastery ability, but sort of done it, from the very beginning of the game, and kind of have you managing shields around your allies. So naturally, I think that I'm kind of interested in this. It's hard for me to rate how good this power is. Bubble Priests all the way, Zipper Fists. I'll also fully admit, shout out to Roll for Combat, playing a life element Eldamon in our Pathfinder 2 campaign, playing an Eldamon trainer who can summon a life Eldamon. The life element is really cool, and it's got kind of a Bubble Priest discipline vibe instead of just being a spam healer. right? Because even when I played a priest in World of Warcraft, I never ever went, the healing route. I never went that route. I thought that route was really boring. I would either be a disciplined priest or I'd be a shadow priest. I always felt like just spamming healing was really boring. This is a complete tangent, but what I want to do with this Abjurer class is I want to give the Abjurer the fun or feel if you've ever played a board game or a video game or like a board game or video game or like a miniature combat game like a X-Wing or X Star Wars Armada, where you have to manage your shields, like where your shields are failing, or you have to redirect your shields, right, from redirect them to double front, or the shields start to collapse and you have to like redirect the energy so that you can shield one part of the ship and not shield another part of the ship. And it's the same thing with kind of like World of Warcraft. When you're in World of Warcraft, if you are just keeping a power word shield, which is called a bubble, if you're keeping one up on every single party member, you're going to run out of mana really, really quickly. So a big part of the skill of being a good discipline priest is knowing when and who you should click and give a bubble to, because you kind of need to kind of predict, right, where the damage is going to be coming and where's that burst damage going to be coming. Armada, GM Scott, I didn't get a chance to play the game very much. I literally only had the original box set and maybe like one expansion box or of minis. But when I did play it, managing the shields was like so fun for me. So, and it was such a cool tactical thing, and I really, really enjoyed it. Stephen, I think replacing enhanced hex with another talisman ability could be really cool. I see so I'm not very familiar with the Wiccan religion, but Maury says a circle of power is a Wicca thing, so I figure that's where they pulled the name from. Okay, that's totally acceptable. I mean, if that's really kind of tied to witches and witchcraft and Wicca, I appreciate that kind of shout out and call out to that. I mean, it's a very cool power and it's very evocative, and I love now that it's protecting your allies and it's helping your allies. I think that's really cool. One thing I will say, again, I just want to be very nitpicky here, is I don't like that it gives you a bonus to your evasion. Again, if the circle of power is absorbing damage, I see that as being something that involves your armor slots or your damage thresholds. Increasing your evasion would literally, in my mind, mean it's making you faster and more dexterous and more, have a faster reaction time so that you're able to literally dodge attacks. I don't, in the fiction, when I'm imagining what a circle of power looks like, and I'm imagining the party moving into there, I'm not envisioning them moving faster or dodging these attacks better. And you might say, no, the shield of power is sort of deflecting the attacks. Cool, I agree with you. That sounds like an armor slot thing to me, right? More than it does an evasion thing. So that's just my personal way that I view the fiction and the way that I view the power. But I still think it's really cool. All right, so let's take a look at the Moon Witch. We spent a lot of time when we talked about the Moon Witch about like phases of the moon. So the Moon Witch is instinct, which is cool. So we got some changes here. So originally we had Night Watcher. When you are in Moonlight, you have a +1 bonus to your spellcasting rolls. Everybody said that this would either be broken or pointless, and now your GM has to remember what phase of the moon it is. Are you outside? Is there a moon? It was kind of awkward to use. So they've replaced it. Oh, well, actually you had two abilities. You had Ire of Pale Light as well. Whenever a creature within far range that you have cursed with your hex fails an attack roll, they must mark a stress. Okay. Well, they got rid of all that, or at least they got rid of all that at level 1, or Foundation, and they replaced it with Knight's Glamour. Mark a stress to glamour yourself in a magical facade that lasts until you mark a hit point, make an attack, or take a rest. It's an illusion to look like anything. And you can enhance your own appearance. You gain advantage on presence rolls that leverage your change. All right, full stop. So this used to be what you got at specialization, and now they have changed it to be what you start off with. I actually think that's really, really cool. The distinction is it used to drop until you took damage or at your next rest. Now it lasts until you mark a hit point. The difference is they make a note here that in the original version, which you got at specialization, you take the form of any creature. Now you can disguise yourself. They're making very clear now that it is a disguise. I actually really like that. Part of the thing for Moon is, for me, I don't know if it is for you, but part of the thing for me with Moon is illusions. It's you know, it's the power of change, right? The moon signifies change. It signifies uncertainty and sort of, not necessarily deception, but maybe a little bit of deception. I think that's a really cool core ability to get. And more importantly, I think it sets the tone for the witch. And it sets the tone for the class, but it also sets the tone for the subclass. This is a non-combat ability. And I'm okay, I'm here for it. I actually think that's really, really cool. That they are starting off now, right from the get-go, that these moon witches can take upon the glamour of the night and they can change their form kind of at will. And they're very, shifty. And, as uncertain as the moon, do not swear by the moon, the changing moon, right? Yeah, so I think that's really cool. So I'm a big fan of that fact that they moved that to the earlier level. And to be fair, I didn't really like these foundational abilities. Okay, so we went from Night Watcher and Ire of Pale Night to just Night's Glamour, which, by the way, is a better name than Moonglow. Night's Glamour is way better. I mean, it's still called a Glamour, but... And now, when we specialize, we get Moonbeam, and we still get the Ire of Pale Light. Once per session, so this is Moonbeam is, I think, a new ability. Okay, it is. Once per session, you can conjure a column of moonlight that illuminates the area within close range until the end of the scene. Okay, while bathed in this moonlight, you and any allies gain a +1 bonus to spellcasting roll and any advantages to see through illusion. So they basically fixed this by saying, now you can make your own moonlight. and they just turned it into sort of a party buff. I will note that it does add now to you and your allies. I like that it buffs spellcasting, not physical attack rolls. I don't know about you, but I associate the moon with magic. Maybe it's the Dragonlance in me, but also I think we all kind of associate a full moon as being more magical. And I do like too that it gives us an advantage to see through illusions. The idea that the moonlight, we are sort of masters of the moonlight, and we can use it to cloak ourselves in illusions, but we can use it to sort of break through. Now, to be fair, it is kind of situational. There's no doubt about that. I still don't like this Ire of Pale Light. I just don't know that I feel like it's very appropriate. I don't know. I think someone said earlier in chat, I don't know who it was, I apologize. I missed it, but I did read it. They said, the problem is a lot of these subclasses don't feel like they match well with the Witch's Curse, the Hex, right? The Moon Witch seems very indirect. It seems very shifty and sort of roguey. And the Hedge Witch seems almost like, like very helpful, and like I'm just this, dodgering little witch who wants to, make little potions and hand out little concoctions, and oh, here's a little talisman, here's a little fetish that I made for you. Hex just doesn't feel, appropriate to that. So them getting these abilities that tie into Hex feels a little strange. I'm not saying this is a weak ability, but yeah. Anyways. Lastly, at the highest mastery, we get these lunar phases abilities. And okay, so we've changed it a little bit. During a long rest, okay, here we go. This is already way better. During a long rest, this is what it used to do. During a long rest, instead of communing, you can roll your communion dice to alter your form. If any of the dice have matching values, reference the chart below for the effect. If you have again, this was really weird. You were using these communion dice. It was awkward. It was difficult to use. Okay, now, the new thing is your spirit ebbs and flows like the phases of the moon. Cool. Already awesome. Instead of us changing form into some sort of weird lunar form, it's our spiritual attunement. It's our spiritual alignment. At the beginning of the session, roll a d4 and gain that benefit till the end of the session. Awesome. This solves the whole problem of, well, what phase of the moon is it now? Now that I've taken a long rest and I'm communed? Like, nope, we just rolled at the beginning and we see what we get for the session. I think this is awesome. Additionally, they added, because I was complaining, I was like, where's the new moon? Where's the full moon? I was like, they gave us eclipse, which isn't a phase of the moon. If you remember on that stream, I spent a lot of time. I think we even went to the whiteboard talking about what it should be instead of what they had. Instead, we have new, full, waxing, and waning, and that's perfect. Between new and full, the new moon waxes until it becomes full, and then it wanes till it becomes new, and the cycle repeats. So we talked about we talked a lot about waxing gibbous. By the way, we are currently in waxing crescent. New moon was just a few days ago. So now what we do is we just roll this once at the beginning of the session, and new. If we have a new moon, we can always spend a hope to reduce minor damage to none. That was the old waning ability. Waxing gives us a +2 bonus to all our damage rolls. Full moon gives us a +2 bonus to our damage threshold. Waning gives us a +1 bonus to our evasion. So the new one we've added here is this damage threshold. Okay, here's the deal with this. It's free. We roll it. We don't have any control over it. They're all useful. In most sessions of an RPG, you're probably going to be taking some damage and being attacked. I will note that these only affect combat. So that is a little bit disappointing because they only affect combat. I also feel like the numbers are a little weak, but it's fine. Well, the thing about it is, Keith, it doesn't matter if you're in a dungeon, because it just has to do with what phase of the moon is. It has nothing to do with, that's one of the cool things about this, is that you just roll this at the beginning of the session and you say, oh, okay, we're now in the new moon. For this session, I can spend hope to reduce damage to none. I like this. I definitely like, they did a better job with the phases of the moon, and so I'm appreciative of that. But I do think that these should be a little bit more powerful. This is true, Jacob Online. The evasion, they're all sort of relative to tier, and you are high tier, and your damage went up. So in theory, +2 is still +2. It just feels like when sometimes you get to add your tier bonus and you're adding +5, it's. I will say this. I feel like maybe this is just me, but I feel like the full moon is the thing that should increase your damage rolls. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like full moon should be like when you're doing the most damage. If we're gonna make it like that, I don't think that full moon should be when you have the highest damage threshold. But full power. I also feel like that they should swap. Waning with new. Right? Because new moon is invisible. You can't see the new moon. What is another factor of being a new moon? Higher evasion. Or maybe give you some sort of like cloaking ability or hiding ability. That would be pretty cool, right? You remember remember Warcraft 3? Remember like the Night Elves from World of Warcraft? But like what was a unit in Warcraft 3 that like when they stopped moving, they became cloaked? You remember that unit? What was it? Was it just the Night Elf Archers? Maybe it was just the Night Elf Archers. But I think all Night Elves in World of Warcraft had like a racial ability, right? Shadow Meld, maybe? When you could basically hide. So that would be kind of cool. Like they could turn invisible or something like that, as long as they don't move or something like that. I don't know. That would be cool for new. It's sick that I remember that, by the way. But then also, think about it this way. Waning, right? Waning is like, drawing the energy down, right? The energy, it's absorbing right? Because the power of the moon is starting to fade. And I don't know, that feels more appropriate to me about using your hope to sort of drain the power of an attack, thus reducing a minor attack or minor damage to none, right? It's like it's almost like the moon itself is lowering the power. It's almost like it's draining the energy away from the damage that's happening on you. Some of these things, maybe this is just me being really crazy and overthinking things, but this is how I view games. This is why people hate it when I look at their games, because I like nitpick over the weirdest, strangest things, but yeah. Did Zealots ever get that ability to turn invisible? I mean, are you thinking of Dark Templar? Dark Templar were always cloaked, but okay. So yeah, I think I for the most part I like the changes to the Witch on both sides a lot, actually. So there's a couple things that I still think stand out, but they're not really like balance problems. It's more of just me with like little flavor adjustments and flavor fixes. But overall, I think this is pretty cool. So I'm gonna say good job on Witch. I kind of like those things. All right, so we've got one more to go. Well, from the classes, we have the Assassin. Now, there were a couple of things that we wanted to do with the Assassin. So I'm gonna bring up Assassin version 4 on the left. That's our version 1.4, and Assassin version 1.5 on the right. All right, well, I'm seeing a lot of changes already in the class feature. Okay, so as a reminder, the original class feature I did not like because it felt too much like sneak attack, and it had this really weird die roll, and it just didn't really do anything. So the hope feature is the same. I still think this hope feature is boring, but maybe it's cool. I don't know. Grim Resolve, spend 3 hope to clear 2 stress. I mean, the Assassin is sort of a brutal professional, so maybe that is cool. You know, not every class needs to be dripping with flavor, I suppose. Sometimes you want a class that's just, yeah, stabby boy, Keith. All right, so the original ability, which I was not a fan of, was when you move into melee and then you make a successful attack roll, you could spend a stress and you make the target make a reaction roll, which is already awkward. And then on a failure, that damage, that attack that you just did, increases the number of attacks by d6 equal to your tier. I did not like this ability at all. Number one, this is going to create a play pattern where the assassin gets their bonus to attack where they jump out and melee somebody. Number one, what about ranged assassins? Number two, this means that in combat, they're going to be functioning by jumping in and out. Now, for those of you who don't know, there was a class in 3rd edition D&D called the Scout class. And it had an ability called Skirmish. And Skirmish functioned like sneak attack. It didn't scale as high as sneak attack, but basically Skirmish basically said, if you moved before you made your attack, you got this bonus to your attack roll. I don't really see the assassin as a skirmisher. So I didn't like this ability. I thought I just thought the whole reaction roll thing was really, really awkward. So let's see what they changed it to. On a successful weapon attack, you can mark a stress to make that target marked for death. Attacks you make against a target that's marked for death gain a bonus to damage equal to plus 1d4 per tier. You can only have one adversary marked for death at a time and can't transfer or remove the condition except by defeating the target. The GM can spend a number of fear equal to your proficiency to remove the marked for death condition. Otherwise, it ends when you take a rest. Sorry, I didn't bring that up. Okay, so basically now, when you hit a target, you can mark a stress, and they become marked for death, and now you get a permanent scaling bonus damage against them. It's not D6, it's D4. But it lasts as long as you have them marked for death. Also, we see again this trend, which is to have the GM have to spend more fear than just one to remove some of these conditions. So this is very, very, very much like a hunter mark. But here's the problem I have with it. You see what the biggest problem is with this? I can't mark someone from death until I hit them. That isn't at all what I think of an assassin doing. Right? So you're telling me that my assassin is hiding in the shadows, is waiting up in a bell tower, right? Their crossbow or their bow aimed, drawn tight to their cheek. Or they're hiding in an alleyway, studying their target, waiting for their target to turn around and lose sight of them. And they are not marking them for death? They have to wait till they attack them? That seems very strange to me. To be fair, I didn't like the original one either. But this just seems like this isn't, I mean, so Anar says, can the mark for death damage apply on the attack that sets it? Let's take a look. On a successful weapon attack, you can mark a stressed to make the target mark for death. Attacks you make against a target that's marked for death gain a bonus. Rules is written, which is not to say anything. No, I think, because it says on a successful weapon attack, you can mark stress to make the mark for death. Cool. It says when you make an attack against a target that is marked for death, you add the bonus damage. The problem is the attack that you made against them, they weren't marked for death. But here's the other problem, Anor. Even if we did let it apply, it's not that much damage. Now, I get it. This is a game. And we can't have the assassin literally assassinating people. But, I also, Jake, why is it a weapon attack? I mean, at least they changed it from melee, which originally it was melee, and now it is weapon attack. I still feel like we're missing the mark here. I still feel like we're missing the mark. Now, the 3rd edition Prestige class, which is not a good model to use, but the 3rd edition Prestige class had a thing where the assassin could study a target for 3 rounds or something, and then you could make like a death attack against them. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't know that I love this. And the get in and the get out is the same. So, all right. So let's take a look at this stuff. So I liked. Okay. So let's break this down. I like marked for death more than I liked ambush. Ambush had a lot of problems with it. Melee being the biggest problem, and encouraging the assassin to be jumping around, fighting, springing from a target to a target. That doesn't feel like what an assassin does. But mark for death is better, but I still think it has some problems for me personally. All right. We've got so right off the rip, this is fantastic. All right, sorry, we skipped ahead because one of the things I wanted to check, if you remember, I was like, why is the poisoner not knowledge? And I was like, the poisoner should be knowledge. The poisoner should be knowledge. And somebody pointed out that knowledge doesn't really have any weapons that aren't spellcasting. They don't have physical weapons. And so they're like, maybe they couldn't give them knowledge because there's no weapons that use knowledge. All the knowledge weapons are spellcasting weapons, which you can't use unless you're a spellcaster. Well, they did it. They did change that. The Poisoner Guild is now knowledge instead of presence, which I love. I think that's awesome, but it is definitely a change. All right, so let's take a look here, see if we have any major changes here. In the Executioner's Guild, first strike, the first successful attack you make during a scene deals double damage. Okay, so we're still, I guess, executing, and we're doing double damage, but yeah. Your ambush feature uses D8 to D6. Okay, now, the first time in a scene you succeed with an attack roll, you roll double damage attack. Your mark for death does D6s instead of D4s, which is an improvement, but I do like that the Executioner gains ambush, which used to be the ability called backstab, which felt weird. I mean, here's the thing. Double damage is cool, but we still have to face the fact that this is a game where you can't, by default, do more than 3 points of damage in an attack. I don't know if this would be broken. I don't know if it would be broken. But what I would think I would want First Strike to be is something like this. The first time in a scene you succeed on an attack roll, I don't know how you write this in Daggerheart Ease, but instead of doing 1, 2, 3 damage, it'd be cool if you did 2, 4, 6 damage. That would feel big. That would feel huge. That would feel, you know, like massive. I like the idea of the assassin character being one that's trying to, you know, spring out, do this massive attack, and try to overwhelm a foe in a single go, you know? So anyways, I don't know, again, that might be completely broken, it probably is, but I'm sure it is. But that's the kind of feel I want from this, you know? 6 damage is a ton, you know? I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just saying, like, you know, the design and development is 2 different sides of the coin, right? Development's like making it actually work and making it make sense. Design is like, this is what it should feel like. This is what it's cool, you know? I wouldn't, Jake of Online, I would have no problem with that. If it's not a brute, you know, or like, we could use like a BP, right? The BP cost or something like that. I actually have no problem with that, you know. Double severe is not bad either. I mean, I just think that there's, you know, or, you know, Z +1 damage isn't bad. 2, 3, 4. That then at least is something. It should feel like, you know. Well, okay, to be clear, Symmetry, we are talking about inside of the rules, because you're absolutely right. If we are setting up a situation where the assassin is assassinating someone, I wouldn't use the combat rules. I would follow the fiction, and I would say that they killed their target. And you wouldn't need to be an assassin to do that. You could do that with anybody if the situation is right. And in the fiction, it is correct to do so. This is, how do you get that? Because Daggerheart is a game about the fiction. It's fiction first, it's the most important thing. But it is also a game about these fun, gamist mechanics. How do we bring that assassin play pattern, you know, Assassin's Creed play pattern or whatever, to the game as well, you know? So, now, Honor, I tend to agree with you, because that's why that was my idea. But yeah, I'm just saying, like, I want it to feel like, damn, like the assassin fucking hits hard, you know? Or something like that. Okay. So, they get Death Strike. When you deal severe damage, they must mark an extra hit point. That's so basically your 3s do 4s. Now they made it, they nerfed it a little bit. When you deal severe damage to a creature, you can mark a stress to make them mark an additional hit point. So they made it cost a little bit more. Apparently, I guess that was too much. Scorpion's Poise, you get +2 to your evasion against any attacks made by the creature you most recently dealt damage to. Now you get the bonus only against attack made by a creature that you've marked for death. And True Strike, once per rest, long rest, you can mark a stress to change an attack roll from failure into a success with hope. And now, once per long rest, when you fail an attack roll, you can spend hope to make it a success instead. So it doesn't change the fear, and it doesn't change the hope. It just changes the outcome. And also our backstab now does D8s instead of D6s from our marked for death. And this original surprise attack thing was stupid because of the original way it works. Yeah, I mean, this is better. I still don't love it, but it's better. I still don't love it, but it's definitely better. All right, let's take a look at the Poisoner's Guild. So the biggest change right off rip is it now uses knowledge, which is awesome, and that's what I thought it should use, and I think that's cool, and I'm all for it. You still get the Toxic Concoctions ability. You still get to mark a stress and add some tokens to the card. You can spend those tokens to use Gorgon's Root and Grave Spore and Leechweed, and it all does the same thing. And Envenomate does the same thing as it did before. So a little bit of a wording change, but it's otherwise the same thing. So everything here is the same, and that's cool because we thought that this base level ability of the Assassin of the Poisoner's Guild was really cool. Then when we go up, we add some additional ones here. We add Midnight's Veil, we add Ghost Petal, all still really cool, still good. And then lastly, we add Venomancer, which is our final. If we could, there we go. Venomancer. We know these poisons. Blight Seed, -3. The damage from your attack gains a bonus equal to your fear dice, same thing. And Twin Fang. When you affect a target with a known poison effect, you can spend an additional token to inflict them with a second poison. So nothing about this really changed, except for it now uses knowledge. And I love it. I think that's really, really cool. So Sweet Threat says, it feels bizarre in the fiction that Mark for Death does a pittance of damage. Daggerheart specifically feels like a system that would allow you to instantly kill an enemy without breaking the game. Well, let's talk about that, Sweet Threat, because the Rogue's sneak attack does more damage than marking someone for death. You see why that feels weird? So I agree with Sweet Threat. And to be clear, Sweet Threat, there's a difference in the fiction. I would totally, and maybe you would even make it more plausible because it's more reasonable, that, you know, if you're not in quote unquote combat, that the assassin could literally just kill somebody without resorting to using the hit point rules, right? It's the equivalent to, you know, when the book talks about somebody falling into lava. You don't worry about dealing them damage. You just say that they're dead or they're, you know, burned badly. They got Anakin Skywalkered. The same thing's true with an assassin. But when we're talking about if we want to use the mechanics, the game is fiction first, but if we want to use the mechanics, it's because we want to engage in a more gamist, back and forth. And so that's why we probably shouldn't have an ability that in the game that just says instantly kill a target, because we already know we could do that. We could do that through a lot of different ways, through the fiction, and we shouldn't step on that. But if we're going to bother using the game mechanics, then we should try to keep them sort of, in the same space, Now, that being said, if you do enough damage to take out one of the creatures in one go, I'm okay for that, because you did more damage than they have hit points. I'm okay with that. I don't know how we figure that out or what that looks like, but this goes back to a very old conversation that Smith and I always used to have, and Tim, about strikers in 4th edition D&D. And we used to say that, in 4th edition D&D you had at-will powers, encounter powers, and daily powers. And we all felt like a striker, regardless of what striker you are, whether you're a rogue or a sorcerer or an avenger, a rogue using a daily power, or a striker using a daily power, should probably do enough damage to kill a normal creature, right? Or bloody an elite. Like a striker dropping quote unquote a daily should be a near kill a good chunk of the time. And I think that would be pretty cool, So yeah. I mean, I think I really liked the Poisoner's Guild before, and my only problem with it was, why the hell is this thing presence? And then I believe they issued a errata. They said, oh, actually, we meant to make it finesse. And I was like, well, finesse is better, because I like that you have to be, kind of precise with your, machinations. But I was like, but knowledge really feels better. The abilities are things like, you're adding it to your recipe books, and you're learning, and you're experimenting. They call it your compendium. I was like, this is totally a knowledge thing. And they changed it to knowledge. So I think that's really cool. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to look at tonight, I'll bring up the PDF here, is the transformations. We're getting over here. So these are a new type of card that has been added. And let's zoom in here and read this. Transformations represent changes or augmentation to characters with Daggerheart. These are optional aspects of a character's identity that may be given out by the GM during a campaign for narrative purposes. But they may also be present at the beginning of the game at the GM's discretion. Real quick before we go on, I just want to make sure. Maury, I agree that they should add some non-magical knowledge weapons for sure. They definitely need to add that for sure. Hey, what's up, Agile Monk? Great to see you. Awesome. Happy to have you here. Yeah, Agile Monk. I'm hanging out, man. I'm at GenCon. I'm as safe as I can possibly be. I've got all of my nerd friends surrounding me. Michael, I don't know if there were any changes to the Dread domain cards. It's hard to say because we don't really have a good way to kind of cross compare. I cannot believe they do not have a change log for this. Maybe somebody on Reddit did it. But yeah. Keith, can a PC act and spend hope without consenting without the rest of the... Keith, hope is not a party resource. Hope is a personal resource, Keith. So you do not need the party's permission because it's your hope. Every PC manages their own personal hope. So no, you do not need other party members' permission to spend your hope. Edward said, I checked Reddit and there is no community change log. Kyojin says, they said they were busy with Gen Con, but they'll try for it next time. All right, that's fair. That's fair. I'm at Gen Con myself and I'm here streaming. What's up? Agile Monk, Knights of Last Call. So if I send you the money, could you pick up Pendragon 40th anniversary hardcover for me? Is that a bit much? Sure, Agile Monk, I'll pick you up. I'm assuming it's at the Chaosium booth. Okay, 40th anniversary hardcover. All right, sick. I'll get it. I assume it's like it's only at Gen Con. I was like, I'm assuming it's an exclusive. Otherwise, it wouldn't really make much sense why you need me to pick it up. Yeah, I mean, no promises. I mean, I should be able to get there quickly because I have an exhibitor badge, so I can be in the hall before it opens. So you get that inside edge, buddy. But yeah, I'll pick it up for you. I'll head over there. I'll just have to find it where it is on the map. Okay, so let's take a look at, so transformations basically are, are classic when we think of, curses. We think of a werewolf, the people who transform into a vampire, people who, get brought back to life as a sort of, zombie animated corpse thing, some sort of shapeshifter who changes between forms outside of just a werewolf, someone who gets killed and brought back as a ghost. So they have a boon and a bane. So one of the cool things about this is that it provides a mechanical benefit and a drawback. And you are responsible for ensuring you track both features, paying special attention to the drawbacks so the GM isn't required to track it for you. What great language. I think we all know who they're talking to here, which is, everybody, all these, players who never remember what their class features do, and the GM has to know what every single player's group does. Utilizing transformation cards requires you buying into the concept of exchange, taking on the burden to reap the reward. So you add to, when you gain the transformation, I love the idea, by the way. I mean, obviously you can start the game as one of these things, but the idea of your character becomes infected with lycanthropy, and the GM hands you the werewolf card. You add it to your loadout as if it was an aspect of your heritage. Like Ancestry and Community card, it does not count against your domain card limit. Consider how this changes you physically, and right now you only have one transformation per PC, but there's no reason why you couldn't. What you do is when you transform, you get these abilities. So let's take a look at this. When you are a vampire, you have the Fangs ability. So you make a strength roll to deal a bite target within melee range, dealing D8 proficiency roll using proficiency. So you get basically a built-in weapon. But you also have a feed, which is kind of a drawback. On a successful Fang attacks, you can mark a stress to feed. Place a number of tokens on this card equal to the number of hit points that you just made the target mark. This is only when you make a Fangs attack. You can hold up to 5 tokens at a time. Spend a token before an action roll to make your fear die a d20. When you take a long rest, remove a token. And if there's no tokens on this card, all of your action and reaction rolls are made with disadvantage. So, this is fucking awesome. This is everything that I want out of a play pattern, out of the physical tactical manipulation. I love all of this. This is so good. Wow. Okay, so number one, why is this cool? Well, number one, the real advantage here is we can roll a bonus d20. But that d20 is fear. So when we rely on our vampiric power, when we rely on our vampiric might, we're giving into the darkness, right? We are, because right, the fundamental concept here is that our character is still a Daggerheart hero, right? They may be a cursed hero. This is sort of an Elric type situation where we can give into that darkness and use it, but it makes the world a darker place, right? By relying on our sort of undead power. Again, rolling d20, awesome. But here's the problem. And we can regain these tokens, but we can only do it when we use our Fangs attack. We have to drink the blood of creatures. Now, to be fair, this might not be our most powerful attack, but it's still not a bad attack. It's D8, uses your proficiency. So, in some cases, it may not be our most powerful attack. In some cases, it might be better than whatever our normal attack is. But the point is, if we specifically want to, refeed, we have to do this. And it takes a little bit of stress to do so. Cool. But where it gets awesome is that whenever we take a long rest, we have to remove a token. And if we have no tokens on our vampire card, whether because we took so many long rests that it went to 0, or we spent them all to draw upon our undead strength, we have disadvantage to all of our rolls, basically, both action and reaction. This is awesome. Yeah, this is very cool. I love the physical tracking of it. I'm imagining the blood token, dice or gems that you would put on this. Mori, yes, when you want it, when you get a bonus from rolling with fear. I mean, there's cool elements there that interact and synergize with wanting to roll with fear from the dread domain. Rolling a d20 as one of your fear dice, or as one of your 2 d12s, is a huge bonus. This is great. This is very cool. Again, no notes. And it definitely has a drawback. You have to feed regularly or, you're gonna suck. Now, it doesn't kill you. It doesn't turn you into dust or anything like that. Which is good. It makes it playable. I remember a long time ago, the 90s, my friend Mike watched Interview with the Vampire, the movie with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, and he became obsessed with vampires and vampires being cool. I was still on the vampires are evil and they're monsters to be destroyed, and he was starting to get into that white wolf shit, and he wanted to be a vampire. And I was like, well, okay, and his character said, we're playing D&D, we're playing AD&D second edition, and he made his character a vampire. And I remember I was just so mad at him, and I was a kid, I was a teenager, and I remember he was exploring a dungeon, and I was like, all right, well, you turn the corner and it's daytime and the sunlight hits you and you're destroyed. And he was like, what? No. And we got this big argument. But the point was, it was impractical for him to be a vampire because, you blow up in sunlight. How you have to really shape the entire game around this. Now, while I'm not saying that your vampire might not be comfortable in sunlight, I like that they just don't flat out say, and you turn into dust in the sunlight. And this is actually playable. So I'm going to go with S tier. No notes. I don't think I would change a single thing about this. I think this is awesome. All right. Werewolf. All right. When you mark one or more hit points, so you have to take damage, you can also mark a stress to enter your wolf form. While in this form, gain a D10 wolf die that you add to all attacks and all damage rolls. Okay, so that sounds huge. When you would gain a hope while in wolf form, you mark a stress instead. Okay, so let's think about that. So obviously you get hit, you get hurt. You mark a stress, your character transforms, you go into this wolf hybrid form, right? The damage forces you into that, state. You add a massive D10 bonus to damage and attacks. However, 55% or whatever of your rolls, instead of getting you hope, are going to give you stress. Basically, you can't gain a hope when you are in your wolf form. But instead you gain stress. But what happens when your stress maxed out? When you mark your last stress while in wolf form, instead of becoming vulnerable, or maybe you do become vulnerable, you go into a frenzy. Roll a number of D20s equal to your tier and automatically deal that much physical damage to all creatures within very close range, then drop out of wolf form, leaving you full of stress and vulnerable. You can imagine the character, and again, remember, we're thinking, we're also used to, well, maybe you all are so used to, of thinking of these things in terms of combat rounds. Thinking of in terms of 6-second combat rounds and what can you do in a combat round. Not me. When the werewolf goes frenzy, that's a whole scene in a movie. That's an extended sequence where, it might be like, in D&D terms, that might be like 6 or 7 rounds of the werewolf just like ripping somebody apart and killing a bunch of people and, tearing them apart. Now, Zipperfest says minor damage nuke. Zipperfest, you're rolling D6 equal to your tier. I mean, that's, 4d20 damage. That could easily be 2 or 3 hit point damage. I should note, though, it's everybody. Okay? And then I love the mental image of when it's done, your character is, kind of like Bruce Banner, in shredded clothing, vulnerable because they're maxed out on stress. So they're vulnerable and they're laying there just like panting and like they don't know what happened. They lost control. I mean, D10 wolf die added is pretty powerful, but you can't gain hope anymore. I'm gonna have to go 10 out of 10 no notes. I think this is fucking awesome. I think this is amazing. I really do. I think this is really, really good. Oh, I see. Zipperfest, you literally meant like a minor nuclear bomb, as in a small nuclear bomb is still a nuclear bomb. Got it, Zipperfest. Maury, totally. Grizzly Ginger Snap stuff. 100%. 100%. Jake says, I'm just having so much fun imagining your guardian deciding to hold the line, sending everyone away, and then going werewolf when the party comes back. Everyone is dead, and the guardian is just covered, in everyone's blood, and they're back in their like panting form. Yeah. Are you in very close range of yourself, Lance? Great question. To all creatures within very close range. I don't know. That's a great question, Lance. I don't know. I don't think it's. I don't think it's conceivable, Lance. That I don't think it's necessarily out of line to assume that you might take the damage as well. But I also could see you not taking the damage. But I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, no, because I think like if you cast a spell and it says it deals damage to all creatures within close range of you, I don't think you would take the damage from that. Yeah, I think it would specify if you hurt yourself. I agree, Pumpkin. This mechanic is sweet. It's exactly what I wanted to see from these transformations. This is awesome. Should they be able to drop out when the scene ends? That's a great question. I think that might give you too much control over it. I don't know. I will say, by the way, people, that in any case, I mean, this is true for any ancestry, but it's definitely true for these transforms. Think about the GM move options, right? Fiction first, people. Imagine the party's outside, and they're trying to catch up to the to the enemies or whatever, and then the GM spends a fear token, and they go, you haven't been you've been so busy, you haven't been paying attention. The cloud parts overhead, and the full moon is out, and suddenly you describe the wolf character creature going shifting, and I go, I'm making a GM move. You're transforming into a werewolf. You don't lose stress. It doesn't take you a stress, but you transform into your wolf form. You didn't even want to, Would I do that? Absolutely. So I think that's awesome. I don't know about how you, I don't mind the idea that there's a way for the werewolf to end their werewolf form, right? Except for, going into spirit rage form, but I would be very careful with it because it might make it, too something. I don't know, but no notes. I think it's awesome. Yeah, Jake, that's not a bad idea either. Jake says this is also an easy one to say. You're high tier, you're in more control. It takes fear equal to tier to do a forced transition or something like that. Jake, just because you're high tier doesn't necessarily mean that this is your ancestry. I mean, this is, you're getting a big benefit when I do that. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's a downside, but it's also a big benefit. You're adding a D10, All right, reanimated. You're a dead person brought back to life through reanimation. Stitch up. During a rest, you can only clear hit points. Oh, this is in addition to ancestry. No, that's true. So that's what I'm saying. You're gaining a benefit and you're gaining a disadvantage at the same time. So I'm spending a fear to let you do something that you might do anyways, except normally when you do it, you have to spend a stress. So in some cases, I might be giving you a benefit. All right, stitch up. During a rest, you can only clear hit points if you have access to remains from a recently deceased creature. Describe how this material affects your appearance. Totally narrative, doesn't do anything, but you cannot clear hit points by any means except a downtime move or the risk it all death move. Okay, so in order to heal, we have to have a dead person that we can literally fix up our body. However, we also can't heal except through that process or risking it all in a death move. So this is super penalty because we can't heal and we can only heal if we have a dead corpse. However, the corpse ability, when we do risk it all on a death move, by the way, remember folks, that risk it all is roll the hope die, roll the fear die. If the fear die is higher, you're dead. If the hope die is higher, you're alive, and you heal hit points and clear stress equal to whatever the hope die rolled. Corpse. When you risk it all on a death move, if you fail, you can permanently mark a hit point to succeed instead. So there we go, folks. The first mechanic. So we've talked. I wanted to do a stream at some point about like what are the because we know technically you can do anything in a game, but what are some of the mechanical areas of the game that we think could be explored? And one of the ones that we talked about was permanently mark. We talked about how scars permanently mark your hope. Well, here we have permanently marking hit point boxes. So it's very hard for you to heal. But you are basically, if you want to be, for a good period of time, unkillable. You just keep coming back. You just keep coming back. You cannot die. And even when you avoid death, I know you can't die when you avoid death, but remember, you're taken out of the fight. There might be narrative consequences. There might be downsides. Your character isn't dead, but there still might be penalties. There might still be problems. Here, nah, you just keep going. That's awesome. To be fair, Symmetry, the permanent hope loss is random. You may not lose hope, and it really doesn't kick in until you're higher tier anyways. I don't love this one as much as the werewolf or the vampire, but I'm still going to give it a 9 out of 10. I still think this is really, really cool. It doesn't have as much of a play pattern because it mostly doesn't come in unless you die. That's the only problem. That's the only reason it's not a 10 out of 10. It's very flavorful and it's very cool, and when it happens, you're going to feel like a badass. And even like the whole you needed something dead in order to heal yourself is pretty grim and crazy. But I don't like that it really doesn't do anything unless you're dying. But 9 out of 10. So still very good, but 9 out of 10. All right, Shapeshifter. Does it satisfy the fantasy like vampire or werewolf? Well, to be fair, Kyojin, I don't know what the fantasy of being a Frankenstein monster is, so I have no idea. In truth, I don't actually know. Okay, Shapeshifter. During a long rest, you can spend a downtime move to swap your ancestry with another. You just swap out the card? That's cool. But when you change shape, you only gain the benefit of one of the ancestry's features, which you select when you choose the ancestry. You can spend a downtime move to switch. That's pretty frickin' cool. Wow. That is, man, this is so cool. This is what, you could be this. I mean, I know that you could be changed, but like, this is what people want when they want to be a doppelganger. This is what people want when they want to be, a changeling, I mean, this is great. This is everything that you would want, I think, to fulfill this fantasy. Is there a downside to this? Oh, okay. You basically are only getting half of an ancestry at once. So that's the disadvantage. The one thing that I would say about this is I think I would make it that you no longer have an ancestry. I think I would make it that you can only change shape, but you don't have a shape of your own, which means that for the rest of time, you only get one ancestry benefit at a time. Is that what it does? I guess you're right. That is what it does. No, because once you change it, there's no concept of changing back, because it's now your permanent ancestry card until you change shape, and you change shape. So never mind. That's exactly what it does. I think that's a perfect drawback. It can be anything at once, but you have to change it, and you only get half of it at once, and you never get two at the same time. I think this is awesome. And for something as versatile as being that, I think that's fine. I think the idea that like you're not like a shapeshifter in the, Odo from Deep Space Nine sense, where you can just kind of go, but it's more of like maybe it's more of a long process, almost like a cocoon or something like that. I mean, clearly you could have the ability to shape change in the middle of combat, but number one, I think that would be annoying. It would be probably too strong. We randomly came across a river. Okay, cool. I'm going to be a ribbit and swim. So I do think that would be way too strong. So I think that's really great.
How much longer are you going?
I don't know.
You almost done.
Yeah, probably. I only got 2 more to go.
10 more to go.
2. I'm going to give Shapeshifter 9 out of 10.
What?
9 out of 10.
Any 10 out of 10s?
Yeah, the first 2. Vampire, 10 out of 10. Werewolf, 10 out of 10. Reanimated, 9 out of 10. And Shapeshifter, 9 out of 10.
So, I think you
Yeah.
have shapeshifted because all dinner we were saying how much Derek doesn't like anything, and now 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Man, I think you shapeshifted. I think I'm talking to a doppelganger.
Yeah, well, they're doing some things here. All right, we got 2 more to go. It's almost 1, so let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
All right, ghosts. You are a spirit trapped between the mortal realm and the veil of death. All right, spirit form. Your physical form can shift between corporeal and incorporeal. Makes sense? Mark a stress to transition into and out of the spirit form. So you have to spend a stress to go either way. So could get, stress very heavily. While in spirit, Jorelson, no, that was Stephen Glicker. Mark a stress to transition into and out of your spirit form. While in spirit form, you can move through solid objects. You're immune to physical damage, but you take double magic damage. But you can spend 2 hope to either attack or physically manifest or interact with the material world. So that is no joke. Like, you're actually a ghost. You can walk through walls. You can't be hit physically. You are weak to magic. And in order for you to even do anything with the material world, you have to spend hope. You can't even do it. That's pretty good. Ephemeral. Cross out a hit point slot when you take this card and when you increase your tier. When you mark your last hit point, you must choose Blaze of Glory as your death move. Okay. So you will eventually cross over, is what I'm reading this as. And when you die, you have to go out in a blaze of glory. No avoid death or risk it all is spooky, because you already died. Huh. There's an awkward place for this where it's like, what if the ghost dies in like a really lame spot? I mean, the spirit form ability is really powerful. Really powerful. I mean, you feel like a ghost. I love what ephemeral is doing, right? The idea that you're not long for this world. I mean, that's what ephemeral means. You're a ghost. Your time here is limited. As a ghost, you only have so much time before you cross over, and go out with one final bang. So this is everything that mechanically is being represented in ephemeral is reflecting that. What I don't necessarily like is that, again, it'd be cool if the ghost, is like, does something awesome as they die and goes out in a blaze of glory, and it's kind of like, I can rest now. My mission is successful. But if you just like randomly die at some point, you're kind of like, I guess this was what my mission's goal was, It's very cool. I worry about that one little piece of point there. And again, the downside only happens if your character would die. But the fact that you're crossing out hit points, and as you gain more levels, you're crossing out more and more hit points, it will happen. I'm gonna say like, I don't. It's not a 10 out of 10 because of the weirdness. I'm gonna say 9 out of 10. I mean, again, really good. I love the idea of you, once you've reached that point in the game, you just, you cross over, but I mean, it is still a game. We still have to play to find out. You don't get any guarantees, right? That's the whole point we're playing. But demigod, right? We are an exemplar, right? Your advantage die is a D10 instead of D6. Sick. All right, so we can really help out our allies a lot. Or no, sorry. Also, whenever we roll with advantage, we roll a D10. Never mind. This is just whenever you have any sort of advantage, it is an insane advantage. But I also think when you help somebody, you roll your advantage die. So I think this also means we're really good at helping people. But anytime we gain advantage, it's D10. Huge, huge benefit. But we have the weight of divinity. Whenever you roll a failure or fear, whenever you roll a failure or fear, the worst type, you must mark a stress or give the GM an additional fear. Right? You're super strong, but you are weighted by fate. And your failures are just as epic and just as monumental as your successes. And so when you roll failure with fear, which is the worst type, it's like the scales of the universe are tilted even more against you. This is cool. I don't know that this is demigodish. I get what they're going for with this. I don't know that this feels as transformational to me. I still like it, but I'm going to give this one like a 7.5 or maybe an 8 out of 10. This is definitely my least favorite. I think it's cool, but it's definitely my least favorite. I just, there's something missing here that doesn't, I mean, it just doesn't pop the way it goes. I actually like the weight of divinity part more than I like the Ichor of the Gods. So I actually like the drawback, the bane or whatever, more than I like the boon. So I think there's just not enough here. I mean, I get that not everything has to be this like cool little mini game. Like, you know, when you're a vampire, you're playing the vampire blood suck mini game. I get that, right? We don't all necessarily need that, but I mean, dang, that was. Edward says, yeah, we didn't think it was very demigod-y. It's cool. It's an interesting idea. And I like the idea of the weight of the divinity, that your failures, you know, it's almost like you're the chosen one. And when the chosen one fails, it's you know, so much more of an impact, you know. But for just dropping a whole new sub, you know, thing, what an incredible success. Like, I loved all those. I mean, that's what I want, like, a template to be. That's what I want these songs to be. Like, that was awesome. Yeah, I think the fantasy here is that you've been transformed into a demigod, right? That you've been, you know, blessed with this power. Maybe you started the game as a demigod, or maybe, you know, divine weight has been placed upon you and you have now a divine mission and you've been given. But yeah, Disney Hercules is the mission. I mean, I think they wanted to include it because they didn't want it to just be like, you know, World of Darkness game monsters, you know, oh, you're a Frankenstein's monster, oh, you're, you know, and again, you know, some of those other transformations are pretty more complex. You know, the vampire one, pretty complex. The werewolf one, pretty complex. The shape-shifting one, pretty complex. So, you know, the ghost one and the reanimated one, not that complex, but you're making a big decision, you know. Maury, it is very Taveran from Wheel of Time. I agree. Yeah, I don't know. You know, I mean, maybe this is broken, and you guys could tell me. What if the demigod was, when you roll with hope, you gain 2 hope. When you roll with fear, the GM gains 2 fear. Like, would that be something? You know, just like that you know, it's like you're very contrasty, right? Your successes are huge, your failures are epic. You know, I don't know, something like that. I mean, I like that they give you, I guess, a little bit of a choice, but I don't know. If you want something simple and to the point, like when you see that class, you're like, oh man, that's awesome. I'd be getting so much, you know, hope, but you're like, ooh, but you still get a lot of fear. You know, I don't know, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. The thing about the option to mark the stress to prevent the extra fear is like, I don't know. I feel like, sometimes I feel like that could be a little bit, but, you know, but anyways, you know, I don't know. There's some cool things there. But, again, I still think as just a first shot. How cool is that? And also, it just shows you the depth that this game could potentially have, right? Because this is a whole new, you know, if we're thinking about our tableau, right, our players mat, this is a whole new section, and it just shows you that we can just, because we're fiction first and we're not mechanics first. Yes, this is balanced. You know, they try to making this balanced, but I'm not worried about whether it's balanced or not. You know, a smart player is going to find a way to play this to their advantage anyways. It's more about having a mechanical weight to the fiction. And if someone wants to opt into that complexity, they can. Not everybody's, you know, it's like one of those things where it's like, if you introduce this, it's not like everyone's going to be like, well, I need to be a transform so I can be super powerful. You already know that there's going to be players in your group who are not going to be attracted to this. They're not going to want to deal with the downsides, or maybe they just don't want to deal with all the complexity of all of that. And, you know, there are some drawbacks to it for sure. But Jake, yeah, exactly. You can add so many things to your tableau. And when I say tableau, I'm using a board game term, by the way. And that's like, you know, the card layout in front of you. And yeah, you could have factions, organizations, blessings, curses. I mean, there's just so many different things that you could add through these mechanics. And it's no different than doing it with, you know, other elements of the game. But, you know, yeah, it's very, very cool, you know. Absolutely, you could totally have a quest to revert. Nothing's permanent. Someone could become cursed with lycanthropy, and they have the werewolf card for a while, and they want to get rid of it. And you're like, cool, this is the direction our story is going to go. And the theming, which is great, and they were done in a very simple package that'll fit on a single card. You guys know, you guys have read some of the templates or some of the more advanced ancestries. If you're going back to even 3rd edition with the templates and modern games with some of the editions, it's like, you know, you just need walls of text to be able to manage these, you know, abilities. And then you're like, oh, cool, I'm a whatever. And you're like, yeah. Now you have access to ancestry feats. And after you take 27 of these ancestry feats, you'll finally feel, you know, like the ancestry that you chose to be. When you get transformed into a werewolf and you get the werewolf card, you're a fucking werewolf. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the most complex system of all time. It doesn't cover every single trope of werewolfness. You know, oh, what about my immunity to bullets except for silver? And what about this? And what about that? It's like, yeah, and this is how we avoid complexity. And this is how we avoid unnecessary, you know, slowdown of rules while still just feeling the essence of what that character or that class is all about, you know? I think it's a great advantage. And again, we talked about the other classes. I think there were some needed tweaks. I loved some of the trait changes for the Poisoner. Yeah, I mean, it's just a great win, you know, for sure. And I'm a big fan of it. And I still don't necessarily know that I love some of the elements that we talked about, and I'd like to see them kind of continue to cook on those a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, this was a great update, and those transformation things are just sick. You know, I agree, Keith. Or the Dread expansion is going to be very rad, and they're just fun plot devices. Absolutely, yeah, David. Yeah, David. Exactly. Fiction first, and that's what I was saying too, David. You know, like, you know, someone could be a werewolf, and yes, the rule mechanic says when you take damage, choose to mark a stress, and then you know, if you do, you transform. And I said, well, yeah, maybe you're out and the clouds part and you realize it's a full moon, and I spend a fear token and you start to transform, and you know, you're like, you know, trying to avoid transforming or something like that. That's cool. And it's a fun thing to play with. And you might go, well, that's not balanced and that's not fair. It's like, yeah, it's not about that. It's about the fiction, and it's about being like, look, werewolves transform into, you know, these things when these things happen, you know. Edward, yeah, I don't know what they're going. I mean, Darrington Press is here. They have a booth. I don't know what their schedule is like from a seminar thing, but Agile Monk, what's with eBay owning the castle at GenCon this year? eBay has had this weird castle thing the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 years at GenCon. I think they were trying to like bring back the castle, but it's just, an eBay place where they do kind of like giveaway type stuff. I am really interested about the creators kit, just because it'll give people like me and us who are thinking about this game and want to experiment with it some guidelines beyond what we can kind of glean from the mechanics. Again, we're not as worried about balance in a game that is fiction first and is about the narrative, but let's not pretend that the game doesn't have mechanics and that those mechanics are useless or pointless. They're there. They're just not the most important thing. Like a moon witch, the moon witch rolls full moon and the werewolf's like, Or maybe, fiction first, guys. It's a full moon and you tell the werewolf, you're like, hey, when you take damage, all right, you have to spend a stress not to transform. You know what I mean? Like, because you're like, oh, it's a full moon. It's wanting to rip out of you anytime. And so instead of when you take damage, mark a stress to enter your wolf form. It's like you have to mark. You could transform for free. You have to mark a stress not to transform. Because it's coming out of you. And so you're like, oh, that's cool. Like, I think if you think about that, if a GM was at your table, and maybe you're not the werewolf, maybe you're another player at the table, and maybe there is also the werewolf player. If the GM made that decision, if you can imagine everybody at your table going like smiling and being like, dude, that's so sick, that's awesome, and just like, oh, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna give in to the beast? Someone's like, release the beast. Or if you can imagine your group like kind of being like, what the hell? That's not how that works, and that kind of tells you whether or not you should be playing this game or not. And I mean, maybe you don't know your group well enough, but ultimately at the end of the day, that's the kind of game of, it's the rule. It's not the rule of cool, it's the rule of hell yeah, and you can't be afraid to follow the fiction and buy into those tropes and, use your fear and moves and, spend fear as appropriate. But at the end of the day, you're here to create that moment of, again, and I cannot stress this enough, when you're playing fiction first gaming, you don't really get this when you're making rules out of the book. You get the you get the cool moment of everybody going like, yeah, like when a GM makes a decision, makes a ruling, makes a fiction first decision, and there's this sort of group consensus of everybody kind of going, yeah, like that's right, like that feels right. It feels cool. It feels like there's no tonal disconnect. There's no fictional disconnect. This feels right. That's a great moment, and what we should be sort of leaning into. Whole RPGs, we discussed that. Per the rules, once you go into your werewolf form, you are in your werewolf form until you frenzy. That of course, fiction first, and if somebody calms you down before you go berserk, if there's some sort of tonic, magic, some sort of herbal tonic that you could take or something like that, that's up to you and your group. But I think as the rules state currently, no. Just because I think they like the idea that like once you're a werewolf, you're sort of, the moon's getting real low, buddy. You have a kind of a Hulk moment. Because I think the idea is that if you could just drop out of it at the end of a scene, like let's say a combat, it might be a little bit too easy to just use it as like an advantage and feel like you're too in control of it. And I think what the thing is when you choose to release the beast, which you're doing, I think the idea is that you can't put the genie back in the bottle, and you're going to be really powerful and really strong, and you kind of are losing some of that control of your character, which is very much in theme with the werewolf, So yeah, I mean, what Copper Blint is saying is kind of makes sense, like, and you could totally buy into the narrative aspect of it, right? Where like, after the fight, your character runs off into into town or whatever like that, and shows up the next morning looking like shit, and rumors are spreading throughout town about a horrible beast that killed 10 cows last night and ripped them apart and feasted on them and left them scattered around, and people are worried that a demon is loose. And you know that was the werewolf, as Copper Blint said, kind of frenzying out, like because they weren't able to control the rage until morning came, until they were able to satisfy the bestial urges of the frenzy. And you can play with that, and I think that's what you would do. Instead of just saying, like, no, you're a werewolf forever until you frenzy and hurt your party members. Like, I think I hate to say it, and as somebody said on Reddit, I think somebody was bitching about Reddit, they're like, bitching about how often people just go, well, follow the fiction. And I was like, well, follow the fiction, What do werewolf scenes look like in werewolf movies and werewolf books? What do Hulk scenes look like in Marvel movies or Marvel comics? Follow that, and you won't go wrong. So... Alrighty, folks, that's going to do it for me. GenCon starts in 2 days. Tomorrow we're going to be finishing up setting up the booth. Steven and Mark and some folks from Paizo are going to be doing a stream tomorrow afternoon, and I'm going to be running setup on that. So that's one of the reasons I brought a lot of my tech, is so that they can have a nice little stream here from GenCon. It'll be cool. I'm looking forward to, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run over and buy something for Agile Monk, get them their 40th anniversary Magnum Opus edition. And then, I don't know. We'll explore Gen Con. We'll see what we're seeing. We'll see what's going on. And I'll talk to my patrons, hang out with some friends. Again, if you see me, I'll probably be rocking a Knights of Last Call t-shirt. So feel free to stop by and say hi if you're in the area. Other than that, I got nothing left. Thanks a lot to we had a couple of people tip. We had nothing up here, but Edward, GM Scott, and Cal all tipped tonight, which is awesome for our fun little stream here. But I did want to talk about version 1.5 because hey, I'm excited about Daggerheart, and I think this is definitely a game that I'm in having definitely a little bit of a love affair with. It just does a lot of things right, and I love how it has one foot firmly in the sort of PBTA, fiction first, narrative type game, and another foot very firmly in these kind of fun board gamey mechanics, a la 4th edition, a la Magic the Gathering, and I love it. So, all right, everybody, I will see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Peace.